and he's like, I need to kick you out of the house. I'm sorry. Like, I can't continue like this. He owes me so much money. And my mom was like, what? He hasn't paid rent? Like, how did I not know about this? I'm like, I want to be better. I don't want to be in this hole anymore. I want to be myself. Like, I can't let this thing control me.
How long have you been making coffee?
So I started back in 2017, 2018, somewhere there. It was quite a journey to get there, because I started originally when I first moved to London. I started working in a restaurant, which people are probably familiar with, but it's called Bodine's. It's an American barbecue restaurant. It's quite a few places all over London. Worked there for 3 years and absolutely ruined me. Yeah, it was.
In what way?
There was a lot going on during the time. My parents just got divorced, and I kind of forced them out of that relationship. So I was trying to deal with that. I was trying to deal with my mom just trying to move somewhere else, and coping with that. And at the same time, I was working like 12-hour shifts, and it was very lonely. And then I met Tommy, and then I kind of just like collapsed into myself. Had a bit of a really downtime for like 3 months where I didn't want to leave my room or the flat in general. And then got up on my feet, started working in was it a tattoo studio I started working in, or was it a cafe first? I can't remember which one. No, it must have been the tattoo studio. Worked there for a few months and be like, no, this is not what I want to do.
Were you learning how to be
No,
an artist?
I was just front of house for the tattoo studio. It was really fun. It was the first like all-female run tattoo studio in London.
Cool. Where is it?
It used to be in Brick Lane. Where it is now, I'm not entirely sure. But they're really, really big, and it's a really good tattoo studio. So Velvet Underground, check it out. And then left there, and because I wanted to do something different, and got into the coffee making. And I had the interest for quite a long time already, because my grandma had a cafe.
Amazing.
Yeah.
In Sweden.
In Sweden. So that's a story in itself. She, I think that's where everything started, because my grandma was, from my mum's side, was the most, I don't know, she was so strong. She started a cafe in the 50s, where she was divorced, single mom with 2 children.
Wow.
And
what part of Sweden?
So no one would know where it is, but it's like mid-Sweden. It's the closest thing would be Linköping, which some people are familiar with because of universities. But in that area, it's called Kvarn, and it's like a military area. So where you go to do, I don't really know what it's called in English, but you like train to become a military person. And she opened a cafe in the middle of that. She bought a house and just did it. And then she met my grandpa and had my mom, and she still had the cafe. My mom worked at the cafe, and she did like baking, everything in house. Just her and my mom basically running it, and my grandpa a little bit. But I think that's how the whole thing started, where I learned about coffee. It wasn't good coffee back in the days, but it was the smell of that coffee is my safe place. Like she had like a coffee jar, and my mom still has it, and every time I open that's just like so many good memories that come out. Yeah, so that's how that's interest got sparked, I guess.
Okay, and this is a good place to start with how you grew up.
Yeah. Oh God, it's such a story. I'm born in 93 up in a place called Östersund. It's all the way up north in Sweden. It's a bit of a messy one because my parents had a ski resort up there.
Can you show me on a map?
Of course I can. So it is... Sweden's very big, but let's see...
Yeah, okay. It's like below the Arctic Circle. But
yeah, but it's close.
So is it in Lapland or just...
Around there, yeah.
Okay. that's where you grew up.
That's where I'm born.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even live there for that long. It's quite a messy story because my parents, as I said, had a ski resort there, and right before I was born, yeah, it was quite big. Like they had like their own helicopter, and it was a whole thing.
Oh my god!
Mm-hmm. And
because it's not like big mountains, but it's just
it's fairly big mountains. I mean, it's not like if you go to the Alps or something like that. But
it's just like there's so much snow, so you can ski.
Easily, yeah.
Wow. Cool.
But...
So you grew up skiing?
Yeah, I can't ski. I can only snowboard.
Okay.
I think the funniest part of that was getting that retold, because obviously I was so small I can't remember this, but my... I don't like saying the word dad, but I'm going to say it just for the sake of it because it makes it easier. My dad is a massive skier and has always been. And my mom has never, like, got the hang of skiing. So he had one guy, like, obviously you have a ski resort, you had someone training people to ski. And he said, like, okay, I'm sorry, that's my cat. He said... I'm gonna assign you to teach my wife how to ski for 2 weeks. That's all you're gonna do, is to teach my wife how to ski. My mom refused. She didn't want to. She still did it though. Problem was, the first day when they finally got up on the top, she couldn't get down because she refused. So they had to go and get her with a snow scooter, like snowmobile, is that what it's called? And he was like, if you don't give me my old job back, I'm gonna quit. Because my mom couldn't learn how to ski.
So was she happy living there, operating a ski resort?
No, because it got, as I said, it got really messy. Weird things started happening, and then eventually it mysteriously burned down. That's all public record, by the way.
The ski resort?
Burned down.
All the buildings?
Yeah, around. Like the big hotel just burned to the ground. And it was like this mysterious fire. And my mom was heavily pregnant at the time with me. And all she remembers saying was, what have you done to my dad? And I don't think my mom clocked how bad my dad was as a person. But it should have been an eye-opener then and there. So yeah, the hotel burned down. I was born, and... after I think 2 years or something like that, maybe less, we moved down to South Sweden, where he bought another hotel, which is another really, really pretty famous hotel called Gyllene Uttern, which means the Golden Otter. And it was during the 90s, and it was like this economy crash, and it went into... liquidation at one point.
Can you show me?
Yeah, of course. So that's easier to show because it's right here. So that's Jönköping, where my mom lives
on
now.
a big lake.
Yeah, so it's right... oh my god, is that further up?
Okay, but it's somewhere there.
It's there, yeah.
Okay, so it's like far south as Denmark, almost.
Yeah, no, not even. It's like a 5-6 hour drive down to the Denmark border. Yeah.
Okay.
So here we are. We live in a really, really big house called Fan Hill. It was like an old converted hotel that they just turned into this living mansion thing. So that was quite cool. What I remember from that house, that was amazing living there. We had like the lakeside and we had lots of fun, and I always had like nannies around, which at the time I didn't really realize how weird it was, but my dad took me on like a trip once, and she came with one of the ladies, and I came back and I told my mom, oh, it was so nice sleeping between whatever her name was and my dad, and my mom was like, what? Yeah, so that was the first time.
And what was your mom doing when you were
My
on
mom
the
was
trip?
at home. And my dad took me back to Austria, where he's from. So that was the first time I caught my dad cheating without knowing he was cheating, and I was like 3, 4 maybe. So yeah, we lived there for a while. And then the hotel went into liquidation because of like the economy crash and everything. And we moved out from this big house into the countryside, and like in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And that house is quite important to me. It has a lot of good and bad memories because we came back to that later on. But because of all this happening, my dad had to find another job because he lost a hotel, and he decided to go and work in Germany. So my mom didn't want that. She was alone with me, and she was fighting the idea to move to Germany. But after a year living with me alone and my dad just visiting here and there, we decided like, oh, let's move to Germany. So that's where I started school when I was 6. Probably not the worst time in my life, but not very pleasant. That's when I experienced bullying for the first time. What
was it about? Because you were foreign, or?
Weirdly enough, it was the teachers that started it. It was one particular teacher that had something. She just didn't like me. So I think it all really started with the first winter we were there, and I had really bad dandruff as a child. I still have sometimes, which is normal, but I had it really bad, and they had this main teacher and the nurse going through kids and looking through their hair, and they were like, yeah, she has lice, which I didn't, but yeah. So she took me and put me on a chair in a corridor outside the classrooms, and then called out the classes class-wise to look at the girl with lice and how they look like. I was 6. And obviously when that happens, kids are not nice. Kids are awful. And it was right before my birthday, and my dad had actually put together like a birthday party and like invited a lot of my classmates, and we were gonna make a whole deal out of it. And the teacher called all the parents to tell them not to come to my birthday party.
What?
Have in mind, I went to the doctors to get a certificate that I didn't have lice, but she did it anyway. So I had like 4 people turning up to my birthday party at that point.
All on the grounds of this child has lice.
Yeah.
Don't go to her party.
Yeah.
But it was actually like you felt like she was targeting you.
She was, because she did it twice within a few weeks. And Germany is a little bit weird with that, like, or was. I don't know if it is like that anymore, because this is like 2000.
Where in Germany was it?
Frankfurt. And the teacher had to publicly apologize because she started such a scene. But yeah, that fueled bullying from the kids. Like, I got chased home from school. Like, I had to run into my house and like close the door because I wasn't sure what was gonna happen. And it was traumatic, and I can't really remember much of it because I think my brain is just like, leave this in the past. And 2 years later, we moved to Austria.
Why was that move? And what was your dad doing? Wait, first, how did your parents meet?
My parents?
Yeah.
They met in Linköping in Sweden. I can't remember what year, but like 80 something, that's when they met.
And you're the only child?
And my mom's only child. I'm definitely not my dad's only child.
Uh-huh. But so they were together for a few years before they had you?
Yeah. So my mom had me at the age of 40. So I'm quite late. But yeah, I don't really know how they met. I can't remember the story, to be honest.
And what was your mom doing for work before that?
She was working with Försäkringskassan, which is basically the biggest insurance company in Sweden. Like doing that, whatever that work is. She was doing it for 20 odd years or something like that.
And then when she met your dad, she kind of just moved around.
Yeah, she became like a housewife, which was hard because she's been working all her life and then went into doing nothing. Especially moving to Germany, I think was really hard for her because she didn't speak the language very well, and she didn't have any friends. She didn't have the comfort. My grandma passed away whilst we were there, and like, it was just a lot, you know.
And so what would she do? during the day?
Nothing, I think. She was just existing at that point.
Was she depressed?
I think so. I think she was. From what I remember.
And did your dad want her to not work or want her to...
I don't think he wanted her to. Like, he wanted her to just stay at home and be, you know, that Hollywood housewife that doesn't need to work because whatever.
Uh-huh.
And when we had money, it was fine. Because we had a lot of money at that time. But, you know, that money also vanished very quickly.
So, how old was your dad when you were born?
Around his... how old is he? I mean, I think he must have been 43, 45, something like that.
And where did he get his money from? Just from working? Or it's like a mystery?
It's a bit of a mystery, to be honest.
Did he come from a wealthy family?
He did. Originally he did. But I think a lot of money... Like, I think a lot of his money got borrowed and... he, as we know now, built up a lot of debt on Amex cards, on, you know, things like that. He borrowed a lot of money. So all that money that we had weren't really ours. We just lived a luxury life that we really couldn't afford.
Uh-huh.
Like, we traveled the world. Like, I've been to so many countries before I was even 10. Like,
Just for holidays?
Just for holidays, yeah. Like, luxury
Like
one. Like, we went to Singapore, we went to Japan, they married in Bangkok. Like, we went to the States a few times. I've been to Brazil about 5 times.
And what was driving that? Your dad?
Yeah.
Like, I want to...
He loved travelling. He loved travelling, but he also loved the luxury of travelling.
So you'd stay in, like, really nice hotels?
Really nice hotels, yeah.
Huh. So him buying the hotel, for example, on the lake, it would have been like him borrowing a lot of money.
Yeah, I assume so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then taking whatever money that he got out of that to just use it as ever he wanted to. Like, just spend it, like, all his money.
And so do you think the fire was like an
Totally insurance fraud.
And was there an investigation or anything?
I think there was. But I think that also got, like, covered up quite well. Like, it wasn't, like... They were like, oh, it was a fire, and it took the firemen to get... Like, the firefighters to get there. It took them, like, an hour because it was in the middle of nowhere. And they have, like, this little ponds where they get water from, but that was enough to put the fire out. And they basically just said, oh, it was an electric failure in, like, the library section that they had. And the hotel was made of wood, so, you know, shit happens.
Was anyone hurt?
No. No one was hurt. It is a miracle. There was no one there at the time because it was off-peak season. So no one was there.
Like, when's off-peak? Winter?
Oh, God knows. Like, no, not winter.
Summer?
It must have been, like, summer, like, or late spring, maybe. I don't actually exactly know.
So how did you find out about this fire?
I found out this about years later. I must have been a teenager when I found out.
From who?
I think I either started asking questions because I found, like, old newspapers about it. That they had, like, these old newspapers about the hotel burning down, and I knew they had a hotel, and I just started asking questions. But it was always like, my dad was like, do not speak about it. And I'm like, okay. And
what would your mum say about it?
My mum wasn't allowed to speak much when I grew up.
Like, your dad would just...
Yeah. So my dad has always been very mentally abusive. More than physical. I've only seen him being physical to my mum, like, twice. To me, a lot more. But to my mum, never really physical. But mentally, like, broke her down. In any sense he could.
When did he start physically hurting you?
I think I must have been 10. Because I always remember him saying, I never want to be like my dad. And I, at one point, stupidly said, when we were driving in a car, like, I said to him, like, you're becoming like your dad. And he took my head and just smashed me in the windshield. Or, like, in the not in the windshield, but, like, the window of the car, like, the side window. That was the first time I experienced it.
And what happened after that?
Nothing. Like, we just never talked about it in that way. But that was the first time because I'm very hot-headed when it comes to that. So we started having a lot of fights, and I never accepted the fights. I never, like, gave up, and I always fought back. So it was always, yeah. But he was a lot stronger at me at the time until I was older. And then all of a sudden he couldn't do it anymore, so he stopped.
And what kind of other things would he do?
I think especially for my mom, it was like she wasn't allowed to eat popcorn. Like, such a basic thing. She wasn't allowed to have popcorn. She wasn't allowed to dress herself. She wasn't allowed to...
Who dressed her?
No, he's like, you can't wear that, you look ugly. Or, like, you know, really mean things. Like, really mean and... controlling things. And I never really understood it until I got older either. Like, it's just like, you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, you shouldn't be wearing that, Mom. And I almost took his side because I didn't understand at the time. And I always felt guilty about that. I really feel guilty, but there's nothing I can do besides from, like, put my mom in a better light now. Because what a power woman, really was. Like, and I don't know, it was weird, because then if we go back to when I moved to Austria, that was because he was...
So what was he doing in Frankfurt?
So in Frankfurt he was working with my uncle, who had, like, a really big business there. Later on they got into, like, this weird drama about... They fell out massively during that time, because I think it turned out that he stole money from him as well, and did, like, a fraud, and, you know...
Wait, and sorry, what was his dad like that he didn't want to be like?
Cold. He was in the Second World War.
Did you know him?
Yeah, I met him for 1 year when I was born, and that was it. I was the only grandchild, or child in general, that he ever cared about. And he was very traumatized from the war, I think.
He was Austrian?
Very traumatized. Same with my grandma. They were a bit strange. But he didn't have a choice, and what I've learned, like, now when I'm older, like, he didn't want to fight, but he had to because there was no choice. And that's something I carry with me as well. Like, that was the Second World War. I don't want to call him a Nazi, but he definitely was within that category, because you didn't have a choice.
For the Nazis.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice. And he was a resistance fighter, like, he really was, but it was not...
Yeah. I remember going to Austria earlier this year and seeing in a church, like, you know how they'll have, like, the people from the village who were sent to war and being like, it's so sad we've lost these lives. And it's a weird thing because these were people, fighting for Hitler, but they're just young boys, like, they didn't, I don't know, I'm getting so emotional, but it's like, it's not their choice to be, I mean, for a lot of, no one wants to be involved in this war.
No, my grandma was a nurse at the time, so she was, like, you know, the field nurse, basically taking care of people, and I think they never recovered from that. So I don't think that my dad, my uncle, and my auntie never got the love that they deserved. I think my uncle more than anyone, because I think that my dad's anger against my uncle is, like, he got a lot more love than he got. So I think his mental illness, because he's a pathological liar, my dad. I think it's all attention seeking, and that's stuck with him his whole life, and still does. But yeah, so my uncle and my dad, they fell out somewhere when they were working together, and we moved to Austria. I don't actually know what he did when we lived in Austria. We never saw him in Germany, and when we moved to Austria it was to see us more, but we never saw him there. And when we moved to Austria, that was quite cool, because we lived on a 1,000-meter mountain. We lived, like, high up. And the kids in school were, like, normal. They didn't really bother me, and I didn't bother them. And we had this really old community living around us. It was like a tiny, tiny, tiny village with like 10 houses. Like, we're talking tiny. But these old people, they really took my mom in and they took me in, and we became like this little group that just took care of each other.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it was good. It was the first time I saw my mom smiling again, it was really nice. I have some good memories from that.
Because from this place I was at in Austria, near Zalmsee.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're near that. Yeah, they were the English guys who I was skiing with. Who lived there. They were saying that in the villages, like, it was very hard for them to. Maybe because you would have spoken German or something, and these guys were learning German, but they like, these people hate, like, it's not that they're like racist or hate foreigners, they hate everyone, like they hate the village next to them. Really? It's like they're so
I never experienced that. I never experienced that, which I'm quite happy about. It wouldn't surprise me if it's like that.
Yeah.
But I never experienced it.
What would your accent have been at that point when you're speaking German?
Oh, I had a really, like, it's called Hochdeutsch, so you speak like really
proper German.
Yeah, like very, I don't fancy, I guess. But then when I moved there, my accent changed to like this Austrian bubbly, like, it's much more fun speaking German that way. But it was it was probably a really funny accent, and that's when my mum really picked up her German, so it's all like all over the place and really bubbly, but it's nice. She does well. She probably speaks better German than I do nowadays, which is impressive.
So were you sad to leave Germany? Like, how did you feel about all these moves, or it was just normal to you?
Weirdly enough, I can't remember moving from Germany to Austria. I can't actually remember that bit at all. Like, it's a blank. I just remember all of a sudden being in Austria, and it was fine. Like, I had a great time, and people were nice to us, and yeah, it was good.
And your dad would just be away place, like, would he come home in the evenings?
No, he would live in Germany, which made no sense because we just moved away from there. It does make sense because he had a relationship with someone else, and which we found out later on before we moved back to Sweden. But basically, I found out about that in a really weird way as well. I went to visit my dad in Germany, and I was hanging out with him and this woman, Claudia. I would never forget her because she was just this, I hate degrading someone, but she was like this blonde bimbo boss woman that I really didn't like, and I didn't understand why my dad was hanging out so much with her.
And who did you think she was? Just his friend or something?
I think it clicked. At first I was like, oh, she's just a person in his life, like the friend. And then I realized that they were sleeping in the same bed, and I got really upset. I remember kicking her. Like, I saw them kissing on the stairs, like going up to the flat ones, and I remember kicking off, and I kicked her, and I locked myself in the bedroom. I must have been like 8 maybe. And I'd never told my mum until like much later that happened. But I was like, I want to go home. So I flew there and flew back by myself.
How old were you?
8. Yeah. You have this like chaperone with you on the airport so you don't get lost and stuff, but it's, yeah. That really brought me down because I didn't know what to feel about it. I didn't know how to handle it. Like, I'm a child, like, what is going on? Like, what is this?
Do you think your mum had any idea?
Yeah. I think she knew. She didn't want to accept it, but she knew.
So why did he choose that place in Austria? Like, is that near where he was from?
No, it wasn't even close to that. But apparently this woman that we rented the house from was a good friend of her belated husband. Like, they were friends or something like that, and we got to rent this massive house from her. Which is ironic because all of a sudden he was like, oh, how would you feel about moving back to Sweden? And I was like, I just settled in. Like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, I think we're gonna move back. And I'm like, okay. And one night we got up and left the house. and just left. And before that happened, that was, I think, the most traumatic thing, because my mom picked me up from school, and we were driving up, and we had this like a Range Rover, and we had this car following us, and I didn't understand, but the car was following us all the way up to our front door, and my mom said, go in, lock the doors. And these guys were like, we're here to take the car, not to rob us, but to take the car back to the leasing agency or whatever. And that's when we found out that he couldn't afford to have all these things that we had.
This was in Austria?
This is in Austria. And this is the second time the carpet's been ripped away from us underneath our feet, basically, and be like, you have to move now. And we had to, like, leave the house during the night. It was really strange. I didn't understand this because I'm still a child.
How old were you at this point?
I'm still like 8, 9 maybe, but around 8.
So you didn't get to say goodbye to anyone?
No, I left most of my stuff behind. We had one moving truck and like a free storage house, just left stuff.
And you were driving?
We were driving all the way to Sweden.
How long did it take?
God knows. I don't know, 12 hours, maybe 8 hours. I don't even know. I can't remember. I think 12 hours.
And why back to Sweden?
Because that's where we still had this country house that I told you about in the beginning, where we moved from, when we moved away from like the mansion to that house in the middle of the woods. That's where we went back to.
And it had just been sitting there? Yeah. Or had he been using it?
That was, I don't think it was used. We just had our stuff there. Like, it was just a place where we could go during summer. Where he also took this woman, Claudia, once, apparently, because our neighbours took pictures of it. Which was weird, but they did, and they were like, this is a bit suspicious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we moved from Austria back to Sweden.
Because basically he couldn't afford the...
Yeah, because I don't even know what he did for work. I don't know if he actually worked. I have no idea. I don't know. This is like a big mystery for me. A lot of his life is just like a big lie or a mystery, and it's just really weird. So we got back to Sweden, and he couldn't find work. And my mom had to go back to work and try to do anything. So she started as a cleaner in a school called Grännaskolan, which is like an international, or was an international boarding school.
So was he encouraging that then? Like, you need to
you need to work. Yeah. He used all her money. Like, she didn't have control over the money. He used all of it. Like, in the same way that he used, like, my mom's mom, when she passed away, my grandma, the things that she inherited, he used.
And then would she have to ask him for, like, we need money for this or whatever? And
he was saying that he did a lot of stuff. He was working with, like, kids to learn German, and he was doing, like, odd jobs, and he was a tourist guide for very many years for his friend's company, and it was a very, very strange time. I think that's when the drinking began for him. So around when I was 9, 10, something like that. So we lived in this house in the middle of nowhere. And I have very mixed memories, because that was the first time, like, he hurt me. But it's also the first time where I got my own horse, because I've been horseback riding my whole life, but that was like my first horse that I got there, my own dog, and we had like a really nice, what I thought, life until things came crashing down. But it was a strange time, very mixed feelings about it.
But you kind of adapted, like, okay, back to school in Sweden.
Yeah. Back to actually my old friends that I went to school with, like, you know, like kindergarten kind of thing. Like, I started school with them again, so I knew a few people, which was nice. We're still friends to this day. Some of us are still friends, which is really nice.
Nice. So you were fine fitting back in, switching back to Swedish?
I think so. Yeah. Swedish was never a problem, because me and my mom spoke Swedish every day, so that was fine. But it was the writing was kind of hard. Because I learned how to write cursive. Like, you had to write cursive. And when I went back to Sweden, I had this one teacher. Again, I don't know, the teachers just didn't like me. We're like, you're not allowed to do cursive because you're making the other kids jealous. So now my handwriting is really mixed, and I don't really understand my own handwriting. But yeah, school there was quite hard. I got bullied. I wouldn't say I was bullying, but I was still bullied quite a lot by a few people, and singled out by a few people.
Because it was like, you're different, or you're
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I still don't know. Like, some of these people, like, I think still hold a grudge against me for some reason. To this day, they just don't like me, which is fine. You don't have to like everyone. But it definitely put some scars in me, where I'm trying to please everyone and trying to be friends with everyone, and, you know, I don't know. It was a weird time. I had this problem with one teacher who kept calling my parents in for absolutely everything I did wrong. That I was lying, that I've been traveling the world, for example. And my parents were like, well, she has. She's not lying. Yeah, but she's telling all these lies and stories. And it's like, but she's not. You know. Yeah, Sonia. I remember her name. She was awful. But yeah, so went to school there. It was fine. You know, normal teenage or pre-teenage stuff. And then when I was 12, 13, I started in that international boarding school, where I didn't live at the boarding school because my mum worked there and we lived quite close. But my mum was a cleaner at that school when you go with like international high-end people. So that was a bit hard.
Where were they from, mostly?
They're from all over the world. Most of them had like diplomat parents where they lived in Dubai, or, you know, things like that.
Like Hong Kong,
yeah,
Nigeria,
yeah,
anywhere.
Yeah, like things like that. So it was cool. It was cool. But these people also had a lot of money, like a lot of money that I didn't have. And
so you got to go there because your mum was working there.
Yeah. They from the age of 12 to whatever age that was. I went there for 6 years until I graduated. So you have people living at the school, but you also have people that are
students.
Yeah. Weird times. Weird times.
Why was it weird?
It was so weird because I think a lot of things happened that is like not really that important, but like put a lot of damage to me. I don't know. Like, my dad was becoming an alcoholic slowly, gradually. He's drinking more. We had less and less money. My mom was working so much while he wasn't doing anything. As I said, he would leave the house, but I don't think he was actually working. I just think he was lingering around somewhere. It was really weird.
And he did he become more abusive when he was drinking?
Yeah. So when I started becoming a teenager, when you turn 15, you take your like moped license. So that was like the best time when I finally got that. But before that, I had to ask for permission for everything because I had to have someone driving me. I lived far away from everyone else. Like, I needed that help. And I remember one time I asked my dad if I could go and see a friend. And it turned into this massive argument that I'd never understood why. But he threw a glass at me that just smashed into pieces, and he was like, you are gonna end up on the street, you're gonna be a hooker, you're gonna be a drug addict, like, you're fucking useless, and all these things like constantly fed to me. So in school I wasn't very motivated. I never got diagnosed for my ADHD at that time, or like dyslexia, or can't count numbers properly. So I kind of gave up in school as well because I get told that I'm useless. Why would I even care? You know, so my grades were never good. My grades until I graduated were never good. I skipped school a lot and I just couldn't care less.
What would you do when you skipped school?
I would go to cafes. We had this little cafe, like really, really tiny, where we used to sit with my friends who also like skipped school or whatever, or had a break. And we would just sit there and spend our like pocket money on coffee and stuff. Again, that's also...
The love of coffee.
Love of coffee, always there. Filter coffee all the way through, because that's what Swedish people drink a lot. Yeah, I don't know.
And do you remember back then what you felt about your future, or like what you wanted to do?
No, I didn't think about my future at that time. I cared mostly about hanging out with friends and doing my own thing. And as I said, when I got my moped license, I was like never home. I just took my moped and drove off. Or I was out with the horses, and because we had quite a lot of animals at the time, and I was just like, I just lived in the now. Very anxious person, but never realised what anxiety was until later on. But I would like sneak away from home. I would take my moped in the middle of the night to go and see friends and drink. I drank a lot as a like teenager, like a lot. And
but always socially.
Like, yeah, always socially, like always out with friends and doing things. Yeah. I think my mind got messed up as well, because when I was 13, one of the guys I went to school with, and a lot of people don't speak about it, but I kind of accepted it. Like, he did rape me, but I didn't understand it. He did it in school. And he kept doing it, and I don't know why, but as a teenager, or as I would say, older child, I kind of wanted to, like, he never showed any emotions to me, but then he was like, oh, I really like you, but don't tell anyone. But I try to like please that and be like, try to be his friend, rather than accepting that what he did to me was really wrong. But then comes again, like, this people pleasing all the time. It was
So it happened at school? Like in the boarding house or something?
No, in the school toilet. But that really messed me up as well. I think for a long time, like, boyfriends, like, I thought that was normal to be treated a certain way.
So you just wanted to go with what he said?
Yeah.
And did you tell anyone?
No. Because, you know, no one would believe me, as he said. Like, no one would believe this, and we are not a couple, and you don't tell anyone.
He would say that afterwards?
Yeah.
Was he the same age?
Yeah. He was in my class. He was trying to do weird things. I don't want to get too graphic, but he was trying to do weird things during class as well. Like, in the classrooms. Like, it was so weird. And he would, like, when I had to wait for my mom to finish work so she can drive me home, he would, like, stay and, like, you know, be really inappropriate, and I just didn't know how to say no, and I was just like, oh, well, maybe this is normal. Like, because you're 13, 14 years old. And I think a lot of people shut in that, like, in that way when they get really traumatized by it. I didn't realize I was traumatized by it. So I just let it continue for like 2 years.
And how did you feel towards him?
I really liked him at the time. Even though he treated me like absolute garbage, I secretly really liked him, and I just wanted him to like me. And he never did. Like, he had... You know, this is like you had a girlfriend when you're like between the age of 13 to whatever, 17. It's not... I don't want to say it's not real, but he had like girlfriends and whatever not, and I was like, why am I not enough, and why is he doing this to me when he has other girls? And it's really weird. But I really tried to, as I said, please everyone. And even with my boyfriends that I had during that time, I was just like letting them do these things because I thought it was normal. It's really not. But those teenage years were strange. Really strange.
So how did it end with that guy?
It just stopped. And I just stopped caring, and I didn't want anything to do with him, so I distanced myself, and then it kind of just stopped in a weird way. I don't know, because we grew up or...
Would it always be in the bathrooms?
No, it was like we had like a little computer hall and it would be there, or you know.
And he would just be like, come with me.
Yeah.
And you would know what was going to happen.
Yeah. And I completely accepted it. Like, I knew it was wrong and I knew I secretly didn't want it, but he was just like... He didn't even convince me, I just did it. It was numb.
It was kind of like one day you might get to be one of his girlfriends. Or...
Yeah, maybe. If I maybe continue this path, maybe I can become his girlfriend. But it was...
Did anyone talk about you guys being together?
I don't think so. Notice? I don't think anyone noticed. And that's really strange, but I don't know if anyone noticed. I think the turning point was when he tried to do it to my friend who was passed out after we were drinking, and I caught him. It was like a house party, and I caught him doing very inappropriate things with her when she was not present at the time at all. I remember her trying to walk to the moon, and I had to stop her. It was a very strange night, and then I caught him, and I had a go at him. I was probably very physically mean to him. And then after that, it kind of stopped between us, and he didn't do anything to my friends around me, and it was just like a closed chapter from nowhere. But yeah, teenage years were weird. Definitely weird. And then I must have been 18. No, I wasn't 18. I was 17, year before graduating. And all of a sudden, it knocked on our front door at home. And this guy was like, yeah, you have 3 weeks to move out from this house. And we were like, what? And that's, again, the third time the carpet gets ripped under your feet. And you're like, what the fuck? And then you live there. I lived there from the age of 9 to the age of 17. You build up a whole life. You have so much stuff in your house. And we had 3 weeks to pack our stuff together. And I'm still to this day don't know if my dad knew about this beforehand, because me and my mom certainly didn't. We did not know.
What was the story? He was renting the house?
Yeah, but we were never allowed to tell anyone that we rented it. If anyone asked, we had to say that we owned it.
As like a pride thing?
Yeah, always a pride thing.
And then where were you gonna go?
We didn't know at the time.
Do you know if it was like because he couldn't pay the rent, or if it was like because the land, like the tenancy was just ending?
I don't know. I'm honestly not sure. Probably because he didn't pay rent or something like that, because that was a very reoccurring thing. And we got to rent a house from my dad's friend, who they were friends for years. He was also Austrian. He was the most amazing person. He's passed away now, unfortunately, but he was helping my dad out so much. And he was the same guy that had the travel agency, so my dad could work with the travel agency. And he was like, okay, I got a friend who has a house, he doesn't live there, give them 2 weeks, they're gonna, get rid of all the parent stuff and you can just move in there. And so we did. We moved to Jönköping, which is the city, the biggest city where my mom still lives. And I remember this guy who bought the house. He's still a police officer. How? I do not understand. He should not be in law enforcement whatsoever. I threatened that guy with a hay. What's it called? Like the trident thingy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I can't think of what it's called.
Because I was trying to get my horses...
A pitchfork.
Pitchfork, yeah. I was trying to get my horses up on this ramp to get them into, this carriage that you drive away with. And he was making a scene, and I was just so distraught. I was like, I'm about to graduate, and I was just standing there with his pitchfork, and I was like, leave my family alone.
The guy who kicked you out?
Yeah. A really bad guy. Do not like him.
Who was he?
Friend of my dad's. Yeah.
Who kicked you out?
Yeah.
So he
So the guy that
the house?
No, so the guy we rented from was a friend of my dad's. the guy that bought it was also a friend of my dad's, and they all just turned their back on him for some reason. And or for some reason, there are probably reasons that we don't know. But yeah,
owed him money or whatever.
probably, like, God knows.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah,
But it was like you had to go.
you had to go. Yeah.
And did your dad apologize or anything?
No. Always blaming other people. He never did anything wrong. Because that's the thing with a narcissist. They would never understand that they do something wrong, even if they have. It would always be someone else's fault. And here we are. We moved into this house, and we try to fit this whole like country house into a 2-storage little tiny city house. And at that point, my dad was working abroad a lot. Like, he was never home again, like usual. And
Back in Germany.
Austria, Germany, all over Europe, basically.
Why did he go to Sweden to begin with?
He met my brother's mom in London, and then they married, and then they moved to Sweden because she was Swedish. This is like during the 70s somewhere. Yeah. Your half brother's mom. My half brother, yeah.
Got it.
I never say half brother because I just see him as my brother, but yeah, half brother.
Mhm. Okay, so he was married before.
Yeah.
And then that ended. And then
Yeah.
you met your mom.
Mhm.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, so he was traveling again.
He was traveling.
And then at that point, could you stay at the same school?
Yeah, I was still in the same school because my mum still worked there. Still, again, didn't really go to school, didn't really care about my grades. Like, I can read, but I'm not good at it, and I can't focus, and which I know now is ADHD, didn't know it at the time. And they offered me twice to have an investigation on that, and I was like, because my dad said there's nothing wrong with you, you're just being dramatic. I just like, yeah, you guys are wrong, I'm not gonna have an investigation, so screw you guys, basically. But yeah, I still went to that school. Finally graduated, and decided that I was going to go to Austria because my grandma just passed away, and I was going to go to Austria, work as a bartender. I was there for 12 days before shit hit the fan and I went home.
What happened?
So I went with a friend, Lovisa. I really appreciated being there. I don't think I've ever told her how much I appreciated it, but I went there with a friend, and we started working in this pub. Lived with my dad, who was there for business or whatever.
Which part of Austria?
Graz. It's a really pretty city. Like, it's amazing. It's so nice. And she had, when she passed away, she had this flat in an area where you nowadays could never get a flat. Like, right by Schlossberg, which is like the heart of Graz. Beautiful. But she had it since, like, I don't know, the 50s, so. But we were staying there, and things started getting really weird. And as I said, I was there for 12 days, and a lot happened in 12 days. My dad was gone for a whole night once, and we were like, what is happening? Like, we can't get hold of him. And then he came home, and he had this dramatic story how, because they have what is train called when they go on the roads? Tram. Yeah, these like the old school looking trams, and apparently this girl got hit by a tram, and he held her in her arms, and we're like, oh my god, that's so traumatic. And then I was like, but if she was bleeding out, why is there no blood on you? And this is like the things when I started realizing how much he was lying, because everything was a lie, and I was like, what is he lying about? And then me and my friend went with my dad to one of his friends who had kids, and we were hanging out with them, and I was like, there's something weird with this whole dynamic, what's happening here. So I started, because I needed to borrow his Wi-Fi from his iPad, and I was on his iPad, and I saw these emails from this woman who had kids, who's like 20 years younger than him, and they had a relationship, and I'm like, he's cheating again. Like, he's cheated on this whole marriage that he and my mom had. But he's doing it in front of my face and making up stories that are so bizarre just to get away with it.
Oh,
Mhm.
because so he didn't come home and he made up the story
Yeah.
that someone died and he had to look after them.
Like, how sick is that? It's so sick. And
Because you were like, where were you?
yeah,
And he was
he was
staying with this woman, but then he introduced you to this woman.
Yeah, me and my friend were like taking care of the kids. With Marcus, like the husband, I can't remember. Renate, that's her name. Her name was Renate. The husband's name was Marcus. Super nice guy. Really liked the kids. Really liked him. Didn't think much of her.
But your dad was with his wife.
My dad was there with my mum, yeah. And then he had a relationship with this woman. Behind.
Oh, your mum came to Austria as well.
No, my mum was home.
Oh,
My mum was still
sorry.
out in Sweden.
But what was this guy Marcus doing?
He was the husband for this Renate that he had a relationship.
But did he know what was going on?
I don't know to this day if he knows.
And you saw stuff on his iPad.
I saw it, and I didn't want to say anything, so I was like, Dad, I need to go home. I'm really depressed here. Like, I need to go home. And my friend was like, yeah, let's get the fuck out of here. This is too much for me. And I was like, this is too much for me. Like, I want to go home.
Was it like messages?
Yeah, messages, emails, weird pictures. Like, I was like, this is too much. So we convinced my dad and his friend to drive us all the way back home to Sweden. And my mom was with her sister in Turkey, I think, when we got home. Not sure. But because of my dad having a bit of an alcohol issue and also taking way too many pills for his own good, his heart has never been good either.
What kind of pills?
I don't really know. Painkillers in general. Heavier painkillers, but not uncommon. But too much. And he had to go to the hospital because he wasn't feeling well. And during the time, I just like logged into his iPad. I looked through everything. I made sure that I had pictures of it. I wrote him a note that I will never see him again. I don't want to see him again. I put it on the mirror when you come into the hallway. And I left. I called a friend, come and pick me up. Come and pick me and my dog up. And we're leaving. So I did that. Went to my then boyfriend's house and waited for him to call, which he did.
Wait, this was back in Sweden?
Yes, it's back in Sweden.
He was...
We drove all the way from Austria.
And then you were like, okay, I never want to see you again.
Yeah,
No,
because he had to
fine.
go to see the doctors. So in that time, in that few hours, I just did my investigation and uncovered all of this bullshit.
What other stuff?
I don't know.
Was that when you found out about the fire and stuff like that?
No, that was way beforehand. That was way before. But it was always a weird... In the back of my mind, I was like, that's weird. That's not right. Like, he owes my brother a lot of money as well. Like, a lot of money. But at the time, I don't think my brother really realised what was going on. And I called my mom when this was going on. I was like, when you come home, you need to divorce him. You need to leave, and you need to leave now. Because right before we got kicked out from that other house, he had a rifle next to the bed, and he always said, like, you're gonna be the reason one day, pointing at the gun. And I never knew what that meant. But I felt like now I've stirred the pot so much, something could happen. So when my
Because
mom,
you wrote the note.
yeah, because I was not very nice in that note, I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot of swearing, there was a lot of accusing and, you know, facts, but still. And my mom was shocked, and she was like, I'm sorry, what is happening? And I'm like, yeah, he's cheating on you, like, he's doing fraud, he's doing this, he's an alcoholic, like, why can't you see this? You need to freaking leave now. So she actually got the courage a few weeks later to write this note that she wanted to get divorced, and left them on the kitchen table, and he signed them and left.
He did.
He did.
And he went back to Austria.
I think he went to my brother's first, to stay with my brother. I do think that my dad tried to... I can't say... I don't have any evidence of this, but I do think he tried to poison her a few times. She got really, really ill from absolutely nowhere, and I was like, I'm not allowed to help her. And so there was a lot of things going on in between before the divorce that I was like, this is too much.
And then where was your mum gonna go?
So yeah, this is, I think, the most recent. This is like the most recent part of my history where things are just like messed up. So my mom managed to get the divorce papers. He signed it. He left, and then the guy that they were renting from came up and said, "Listen, he hasn't paid rent for 3 years." But because they were friends, they were kind of just like, "Oh, he'll pay eventually." He got a deal to pay £300 for a whole house, and he didn't pay a single penny to this guy. So all of a sudden, my mom's there, newly in the middle of a divorce, where my dad's wherever the fuck he is, with all this stuff, and he's like, I need to kick you out of the house. I'm sorry. Like, I can't continue like this. He owes me so much money. And my mom's like, what? He hasn't paid rent? Like, how did I not know about this? And then it got worse. Because they got divorced, all these papers about debts started coming in. And all of a sudden, she finds out that he's in £350,000 debt. And because he has no Swedish declared income, it falls on my mom. So with all these debts, now getting kicked out, she had nowhere to go, and it was impossible for her to get somewhere to rent a house or a flat or anything. Like, you can't even get a phone contract. And in the middle of that, I decided I'm going to move to London. And she was like, go. Like, just leave, do your thing, it'll be fine, I'll be fine. And I'm like, I can't leave you like this. And she's like, just go.
How old were you?
20. 19, 20. No, I mean 20, yeah.
And what had you been doing back in Sweden?
I was just working odd jobs, and I was living with my ex-boyfriend, who was more like my dad than I understood at the time. But
was he older?
Yeah, not much older, but a few years older than me. He was my teenage crush because he went to the same school as me. And yeah, so my mom is there with like no money, with all these debts just piling up.
So she was like, we can't get divorced.
No. She was getting divorced. She did not care about that because the debts would be there regardless. So she managed to find a flat that agreed on her renting because she had an income, where she still lives now. It's a beautiful little flat.
From the school?
No, from the area where we lived.
As in, would she still work?
Oh, she was still working at the school, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel guilty because I left her in a lot of shit. I really did. I still had horses, and she had to deal with that. And I had to put one of my horses down because she was going blind, and I couldn't be there at the time. Like, I couldn't see it, so she had to deal with that. And, you know, and the whole throwing things out to trying to cram all her belongings into a little tiny flat. And then she went to like this, it's like when you have debts, you can go to this company who then like breaks down how much you can pay for a certain amount of years before that falls back to the person that originally had the debts. Does that make sense? So she paid £700 for 7 years to pay off her side of the debt.
£700 a month.
Yeah.
And she had to pay her rent and
bills and all of that
on her cleaning salary.
Cleaning salary is still like, what in English pounds, I mean, it's like £2,000 a month. So it's not too bad, but it's still a lot when you have to pay all these other things. And
she was just like, I just have to pay it. Like, I'll never be able to get the money from him.
Yeah, no,
he doesn't
never.
Have the money.
He's never going to pay it. Never. He will never even admit his fault that he had debts.
And there was no one she could get help from?
No one. Because she didn't have any friends at that time. She wasn't allowed to have friends.
Did she have siblings?
Yes. Her sister did help her out where she could. She's well off, I guess, but she never wanted to borrow money. She never wanted to get into that debts of someone else.
Even, I guess, for like moral support or someone to talk to? Like, was she close with her?
Not in that way. Like, she did tell my auntie eventually of everything that was going on. And my mom's family was always suspicious of my dad. Like, my grandma would never actually directly talk to him. She would always, like, ask my mom to tell him something. She would never talk to him. I don't know. I think my grandma had a sixth sense for that because she's like, I don't trust him.
But she had passed away by this point.
Yeah, she was gone for that point. My like, yeah.
And your grandpa as well.
Yeah. And
oh my god, your mum is such a amazing.
I don't know how she got through it. She never had therapy for anything about it, and she's the happiest person I've ever seen now.
Really?
Because she was so, like, she never talked, she wasn't allowed with friends, you know, she wasn't really allowed to do anything. And when they got divorced, something sparked in her, and she grew, like, in personality like I've never seen before. She was out, like, she's out now with her friends, like, going to the cinema once a week. She goes dinners. She works at the biggest charity shop in Europe, and not works but volunteers, and she's like doing her thing, you know. And
so it just took like that letter from you, or you talking to her to say, please leave him, like, you deserve better.
That was like the final one, because I kept telling her, you need to leave him, like, this is bullshit, like, you shouldn't be with this guy and whatever not.
And what would she say to you?
I can't leave, I can't do this on my own. But she could have all along, but she didn't know it at the time.
And what do you think was the thing that made her finally do it?
I think because I was in pieces, and I was like, you can't do this to us anymore. Like, do you not see how far this has gone now? So yeah, she moved into her flat, she continued working, and my dad just left. He came back once to get his stuff from the house with my brother, and that was it. I saw him last time in 2013.
Wow. Was that after the letter that you saw him?
Yeah, I can't remember. Actually, it might be the last time I saw him. When I wrote that, before I wrote that letter, before he went to the hospital, to the doctors, I think that was the last time I saw him.
And did he try to fight against the divorce or anything, or he just accepted it?
I think he's just accepted it. And he was like, he called me up and he was yelling down the phone on what a piece of shit I am, basically, and whatever not. But I think he accepted it. But because that divorce, people started talking. So all these secrets and all these things that have been held away from us that we didn't know, like the past, just started unraveling. We found out so much shit from people that we would never have found out if they wouldn't have gotten divorced. I don't even know where to start. I remember one girl writing to me on Facebook. This was in 2016. And she was like, hi, I'm this woman's daughter. I don't need to introduce myself. You probably know all about me. And I was like, I don't know who you are. And it's like, oh, I'm the daughter for your dad's girlfriend, whatever. I was like, what? And then she was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your mum. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, your mum passed away in a car accident, right? And I was like, no, she fucking didn't. And I showed her a selfie that I just took with my mum, and she came to visit me in London. I was like, this is like 2 months ago. Like, what are you talking about? And she was like telling me the story how my dad had told them that my mum passed away in a car accident while me and my brother and my dad were making dinner at home. First of all, my brother is like 15 years older than me. He wasn't even living at my home when I was 11. There was no such thing. And, you know, and then we found out how much money he'd borrowed from people, and he, you know...
Where was that girl from?
Austria, Germany? I don't know. Not sure. Didn't ask too many questions. Didn't really want anything to do with her.
Why would she message you?
I don't know. It was so out of the blue, and it was one of those messages where it's like, I don't remember the Messenger app, you know?
Yeah.
There's like hidden messages for people you don't know.
Requests, yeah.
And I just saw it and I was like, who the fuck's this? This is weird.
Wow. And then she must have
Yeah,
confronted him to be like, why have you made all this
I don't
up?
think they did, because I think they had separated by the time I found her message. But yeah, it was a whole thing. Like, it was just so bizarre, and I just kept finding out these lies and spiraling down this rabbit hole where I'm like, this is nuts. He made so many people upset. As I said, he borrowed so much money, and then all of a sudden I realized, well, hold on a second, I was working when I was a teenager at his friend's hotel up in somewhere, and I never actually got the money for it. Found out then after this divorce that he was using me to work there because he had debts to pay off to this guy, because he had to bail him out for stealing money from like the community road work, blah blah blah, something, stolen like so much money. And then all of a sudden we got letters from like a pawn shop where it was like a confirmation about jewelry that got taken to the pawn shop and got auctioned out, and we're like, what? Wait, what?
Whose jewelry was it?
My mom's, my grandma's, like these were old things that we had inherited that he's taken. And my mom's like, where is it? I was like, oh, you probably lost it. But he's gone to a pawn shop to then get money from it. It was like 25 grand worth of jewelry that he's just like taken the money for himself. He stole on his mom, he stole my grandma's jewelry on the deathbed.
What, like took it off her?
Took it off her and sold it.
Oh my god.
My grandma was really sick before she passed away, and she made my dad sign like this, like a bank thing that he can take care of her finances because she wasn't well enough to do it. And then the last Christmas she was alive, she was gonna try to take out money to go and buy us Christmas present, and she got declined, and they went to the bank and it's like, yeah, you don't have any money. So he's taken all her money out of different bank like ATMs and did I don't know with the money. I have no idea. And I found out from my uncle actually, which was really bizarre.
So when you wrote that note, you were genuinely like, I just don't want you to be part of my life.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever see you again or talk to you.
Yeah. Basically. I wrote it in an email at one point, and I was trying to explain to him like what he has done to me and for all my life. Because I mean, this is very, even though this is long, this is very compact compared to what it actually is. Like, this is so drawn out what's really happened, you know. And it's just, he lied that he was a pilot in the military for, I thought he was a pilot for the military for 20 years. When he was like, yeah, back in the days I used to fly, airplanes. It wasn't true. He was an airplane engineer, which was amazing. Why would you lie about that? I don't even know if that's true, but, I found out that wasn't true.
So do you still feel, like, how do you feel about him now? Or do you know anything about him?
Weirdly enough, he wrote to me a few days ago and this morning, which is the first time he has contacted me since 2015.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, I wish we were close, my beloved daughter, blah, 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 blah. No, and it's like weird emojis and stuff. And I'm like, where does this come from? You haven't been a nice person for the last 29 years. Like, why now? Why do you try to find some redemption now?
Was this on email?
Messenger. Started some Facebook and then found me and then tried to add me and... Ugh.
And how does that make you feel?
I don't know if I come to terms with it, to be honest. I was thinking about it this morning when I got the message, and I'm like, do I block him? Do I answer? Do I have a freak out? What do I do? I don't know how to deal with those emotions. I never really knew. And I did a lot of therapy in the last 3 years. I've done PTSD therapy. I've done like normal CBT. But I had a lot of intense help because I had an absolute mental breakdown because of all of this. I had to deal with it somehow, and I never dealt with it. which my mom miraculously never had to do.
That's such weird timing with this, that he messaged you.
I know,
Right?
it's really strange. I don't know why or what's happened, but he's like 70 something now. And I think he had 2 open heart surgeries so far. So I'm wondering if either he wants money or he's genuinely trying to find redemption.
How do you hear his news? Does your mum like know?
No, my mom doesn't know anything. I think she has a restraining order on him, to be fair. So I've heard from my brother. I've heard a few things, but my brother has also now distanced himself. He met up with my mom a few months ago, and she got to meet, like, not her grandchildren, but, you know, his family and stuff. And he turned to her and gave her a hug and said, "I'm so happy you got away from this awful man. You never deserved this." So I think it's slowly coming to realization, and for him as well. He doesn't let my dad see the grandchildren because I don't know, he just can't cope with the lies and can't trust him.
What's your brother's mum like?
Oh, Eva is amazing. She's really, really nice. Also very strong. But I think she had to go through the same thing that my mom did, but maybe half of it, but still really intense. But she got away. I also have a half sister. She is like in her 50s or something. I actually don't know. I know her name is Nicole. That's all I know.
And who's her mum?
She is a woman that my dad had a relationship when he was quite young, and she was much older than him. She got pregnant and she left. I think she legit just used him as a sperm donator. So she was the only woman that actually got away.
Was she Swedish as well?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about that part. I don't know anything about my sister besides from her name. And she lives in Switzerland, and that's all I know. I know that she had like a stroke a few years ago, I think it was. I'm not even sure, like, and I don't actually know anything about her.
And when you talked about the mental breakdown, was that what you said at the start of this?
It was around the time where I found out that my dad had lied about my mom dying. That, I think, because that was like when I broke the contact completely, like where I didn't write to him, because I didn't see him since the divorce, but I still had a bit of contact, where I still called from time to time just to check in. But that was like the breaking point where all the lies started like being uncovered, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't work, like I couldn't do my job, like nothing was working.
And you were in London at that point?
I was in London. I just moved in with Tommy.
That was the period where you were like, couldn't.
Yeah, like he dragged me to the GP and said, "We need help. She needs help." They put me on like diazepam before they actually started treatment because I couldn't cope with life. And I've been in a very dark place for many years, but slowly I'm coming back to life. I try to drown myself with smoking so much weed that I wouldn't be able to have anything else in mind. Like I was smoking so much, just to numb myself. I guess that's a lot of people do when they start an abusive relationship with drugs or alcohol. And since March this year, I've stopped smoking. And for the first time in like 10 years, I've been like clear-headed, which is an amazing feeling. And I don't think the weed did me any good being in that state either, because it makes you fragile. People don't understand it, but it does make you fragile, your mind.
Were you working at that point? And you just need to smoke before
I was smoking before, during, and after work. Like I was always high, and I weirdly enough can cope very well with it. I work really well being high. I hate saying it, but I was. But it also became a thing where, you know, you couldn't socialize with people. You were out like with friends and you're like, I need to go home now. I need to smoke, basically. Like you wouldn't say that, but I would go home just to get that fix, whatever you want to call it. So my social anxiety has gone from like not being able to go to a shop to actually go into Sainsbury's and buy groceries, which is big step. But I haven't been able to do those things for many years, where Tommy has been my crutch, like literally done everything for me because I couldn't do anything. Didn't have the energy to do anything, or, you know, the mental strength.
How did you meet him?
We met at a bourbon tasting. When I worked with Bodines and he worked for Dirty Martini at the time. That's how we met. It was, well, love at first sight, I don't know, but it was meant to be. Inseparable since then.
So how did you gradually, like, what did it look like your road to working again, and gradually...
Started getting therapy, dealing with my demons, like dealing with all the things that I had closed in, and I had to do a lot of work for it. And I was accepting the help I was getting. So I think that's a lot of it as well. You have to have a mindset if you want to get help. It is so hard to be like depressed or, you know, anxious and having panic attacks for everything, and not accepting the help that you get, because sometimes when you go to therapy, it's not going to be like, yeah, I'm fixed. No, it's not like that. It's a long freaking road to get there. So 3 years of therapy, and here we are. I slowly got back into working. I stopped having panic attacks. I slowly just got my life together again, and right now it's good. It's good right now. Especially I found coffee, and I found a love and a passion. Like, it's not just my job, it's my hobby. And I found something that I really enjoy, because I said in the beginning, like when I was learning stuff, when I went to school, like I really struggled to learn things. Or like, you know, I didn't care. But now I have something that I really care about and that I'm passionate about. So that helped a lot, I think. I mean, I had a few jobs where I absolutely hated it, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I left in bad ways, but it all led to this. And I'm quite happy with it, to be honest.
I think that's why, yeah, so this is how we know each other, from me buying coffee from you, but I think I noticed that so early, like it's such a special thing, because it's actually not, it's like you're spending money, you know, you can just get coffee in like lots of other ways. So if you're gonna spend money, which in London it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
It's like I want to buy it from someone who really cares about the coffee and is like making it in, and you like did, yeah, I think that was one of our first conversations about, I don't know, something, and it was like you just care. And it's like, you just love it. And you were just like, this is my passion. And it's such a, yeah, I think it's such a special thing to really care about your work and put love into your work. And then it's like the person on the other side gets to feel part
I think
of that.
that's the most important part, because sometimes I just wanted to go in somewhere and have someone to ask me how my day was, but I never really got that. So for me, like being in hospitality, it means the world to me. Like people just see it as a job or whatever, and like, oh, I have to talk to customers, but I actually do care. I genuinely care about people. When they come in, I'm like, how is your day? Tell me. And I don't know why, but a lot of people open up to me, and I appreciate that. Like, you know, I'm like, you don't have to tell me these things, but feel free if you need a hug. Like, I'll give you a hug, and here's a nice cup of coffee, you know? I think it's...
Which has been me coming in and crying about, I think, yeah, breaking up with my boyfriend, and you were like, gave me a hug and a brownie.
Yeah, a hug and a brownie always helps.
So nice.
And I love making, like, because I'm very bad at remember people's names, but I remember people's coffee, weirdly enough, from like 6 years ago. I still know what coffee they want. And I want to make that one little cup that you get a day special, you know, because it can help. You know, as well, when you felt like that, when you had a really bad time, if I can give you a brownie and a coffee, I will. Like, it's those small things that I like doing. And I had a chat with some my colleagues, and they're like, yeah, but this is just a job, and like, you know, it's whatever. But I see it as more than that. I feel like, you know, I want to give something to someone that someone can enjoy and actually have happiness from. And yes, I am a coffee snob, I'm not gonna lie, I am one of those people now, but I like it. I love what I do. And as I said, I've been in hospitality basically my whole life because of my parents, so yeah.
Did you have, in any of the time where you were getting help
Mm-hmm.
and turning your life around, was it like, did you ever feel that victim thing of like, this is so unfair, why should I, you know, my dad has caused this, or like, this isn't my fault and I want to like blame someone else?
I think I still do to this day sometimes. Definitely do feel like, why did you have to be like this? Why couldn't I not just have a normal dad that... But I never deny that he loved me. I'm never gonna deny that. But I'm just like, why could you not just be normal and be there for me? Why did you always have to be different? Or why wasn't it just like easier? I think in the recent years I've really come to accept the fact that if this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. Even though who wants mental health issues? Who wants all this baggage? No one wants that. But at the same time, I've learned how to kind of be like, yeah, if this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have met Tommy. If this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't live where I live now. I wouldn't work with what I work now, you know. Maybe I wouldn't even have moved to London, because my dad lived in London during the 70s, 60s, 70s, you know. Like, that inspired me to move here, and you know, it's but yeah, I do blame him. I do blame him a lot for it. I don't think that's ever gonna pass. Never blame my mum for not getting divorced earlier than she did, because, you know, when you're in a mentally abusive relationship like that, you don't see the bad stuff in it.
What was the main motivation that got you, like, was it Tommy that, or what was it that got you to
deal with it?
Or to get out of that place where you were stuck and you couldn't leave the house?
I think a lot of it I have to thank Tommy for it. I really do, because I couldn't have done it by myself. I could never have done what I've done without him. He was like the main person to help me find a way, and the patience of that man, oh my god, like he's very amazing when it comes to that, because I have chronic migraines as well, so like he would help me when I have my migraine fits, or you know, I'm so depressed I can't get out of bed, and he would still make me a hot water bottle and make me food and make me feel good, put on a Disney movie. Like, all these small things that he's always done have helped me. Like, he pushed for me to go to therapy, and then asking me how it was, and never covered up, never like sugarcoated everything. He was there for me constantly. And my mom as well. Like, my mom was like, you need help, you get help, and we will be here to support you no matter what. So the positive reinforcements I've got from my mom and Tommy have definitely been a driving force for where I am now. But I guess I have to thank myself as well for actually doing it. You know, because when I first started getting therapy and having to get to the therapy sessions was already horrifying. I'm like, Tommy, I need to go 10 minutes on the bus. Like, I need to be around other people. And he's like, you can do it. You can do it. He would like come with me some places, and like, not there to hold my hand, but being there as I know that he's there and I'm getting that support. So no, it's 90% my mom and Tommy that has helped me. 10% myself.
Because you must have decided that you wanted to get better.
Yeah. At some point, I'm like, I want to be better. I don't want to be in this hole anymore. I want to be myself. Like, I can't let this thing control me. And that's where my PTSD treatment really helped me, because it's called MDMR. It's a whole thing. If you don't know, like, look it up, because it's absolutely astonishing how that works.
Is that the tapping thing? No,
it can be tapping, it can be, because I did a rapid eye movement treatment, it can be sounds, it can be anything like that, but basically you go into the bad memories, because I have multiple bad memories, it's not just one thing that has traumatized me, it's multiple. You choose that, and you change the way you perceive a memory into something more manageable. So the memory is still there, it's never going away, but I can handle it and, mentally just, work on it in a different way. And that's opening a can of worms. Every time you go to therapy, you have like your 90-minute session, and then you go out of there and like this whole thing is brought up again. But eventually it works. Eventually you get to a place where you're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to take care of myself now. Now I need to do this. Now I want to do this. You stop blaming yourself. You stop digging yourself into a hole. But it doesn't work for everyone. It's not a miracle cure. But it worked for me. And I still use all the tools that I've gotten from my therapists to this day.
Amazing. And it's like years of work.
Yeah. It was a good 3 years getting through it. But I was like intense. It was up to 2 sessions a week. But you have to really fight for that though, because the NHS is good and all, but you have to really push to get the help you deserve. Which also, again, Tommy's help, calling people and things like that. But yeah, it did work for me, and I feel like I come out the other side a lot stronger than I was when I went in. Because I can actually function now. I can go out and see my friends, and I can go to a pub if I want to. I can go to a restaurant. I can travel without having panic attacks. I can live, because before I wasn't living, I was existing. That was all I was doing. Yeah, it was an interesting journey, but here we are.
And what's life like now for you?
It's quite good, actually. It's quite surreal how things have just kind of moved along, and just everything's just turned out alright, I work in a coffee shop right now as a senior barista, and I absolutely love it there. The people are great, my boss is great, the people I work with are wonderful, and I'm learning every day something new about coffee that it just inspires me to keep going. My relationship with Tommy is still amazing, which after 8 years or something, it's I'm not ungrateful. Like, I always think how grateful I am, and I don't take things for granted. But I'm quite happy. We live here in a really nice flat in Putney with 3 cats and just doing our thing. I'm quite content with it.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say? Or can I ask you the 3 last questions?
Please, yeah.
Okay. Is there a practice you do that keeps you grounded?
I think the one thing that I wish I had a way to meditate. I don't have the patience for it, unfortunately, because my brain is so active all the time. But I keep reminding myself what I have and where I came from and where how I got there. I keep processing that all the time. Yeah, it's a hard question, but I keep going. I just keep going, because what I've learned from therapy is whatever happened in the past, and it's not happening right now. I think that's something that I live by, that you have to decide your own future, more or less.
So is that a conscious thing? If you notice you're slipping into negative stuff, you bring yourself back?
Yeah, and I use the tools that I got from my therapy to be like, okay, I am having a bad day, and that's okay. What's the next step? How can I make myself feel better? And again, with Tommy, he knows when that happens, and he has his magical ways to make me feel better, But yeah, it's an interesting question, because I never really thought about it. I just keep going for some reason. Positive thinking a lot. Just trying to remove negative energy from my head and be like, kites then.
Is there a book or any other kind of wisdom that came from somewhere that's had a big impact on you?
Oh my god. No, I don't really know, actually. That's really hard. I don't know. I've read a lot of books, and I'm really bad with names, as I said before. I have this one book about mental health. I can't remember what it's called. I wish I knew. But that has helped me. Like, sometimes I go back and read it and be like, I can't remember.
What do they talk about?
When you're in a dark place, how, like, the positive reinforcements and how to... I can't even remember what the book is about now. That's really embarrassing.
No, it's fine.
But I think the biggest inspiration...
How did you find it?
From my therapist. He suggested that book. And there's one book that is really important to me, and that's the EDMR treatment, how that works. Because I need to remind myself how to use those tools, you know. So I go back and read that. What the author is called, I can't remember. But it's the guy that created... Or the woman? The person that created this EDMR treatment. That's a book that I'll go back to. It's somewhere on my bookshelf. I guess the biggest inspiration is still my mum, to be honest. Books aside, that's the person I go back to when I need to know that things are okay and gonna get better.
And last question, what 3 words describe the best version of you?
Ooh. Energetic, because I love being... I'm very, you know, positive in that way. 3 best words. I'm quite a happy person in general. So a happiness. And a coffee lover. I don't really sure. How would you say it?
No, that works. I think, so mine is like, I don't know, I think at one point on this podcast I said honest, kind, and brave. I think honest is already what I am, and I can't really change that for better or worse.
Yeah.
And kindness is like what I really want to aspire, like remind myself always, kindness, compassion. And brave, I don't know, because I have a tendency to, I think I want
That's
to be a
good way to
courageous person.
Yeah,
but
I like
I don't know what it means. People just say all different kinds of things.
Yeah, I never
It's
really
a
thought
weird-
about 3 words about myself,
Yeah,
you know?
I think it comes from a place where I get stuck in these negative, depressive places, and it's so... Which, this is why I'm like, tell me all your like positive thinking stuff, and I'll go and look at your books. But so it's like when you're in this place when you feel so shit about yourself and that you're worthless or whatever, like everything's horrible. It's like, oh, what's the person who, if I can show up as my ideal self, like what does that look like?
Yeah.
But yeah, yours are great for that.
I think honesty I will take as well, because of my dad being a pathological liar. For me, the most important thing is being honest, and that's sometimes not the best thing because I can be too honest, and sometimes I don't know that I'm saying things that can actually hurt someone, and I need to learn that. But I honesty, I stick with that. Like, I'd rather be honest than make something up. So that's a good way. I like that. I'm gonna think about that. 3 words about myself that describe me. That's gonna be one thing that's gonna be on my mind now.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Sorry for a messy story. Like, it's, you know, it's a lot to take in.
No, thank you for your honesty. And I'm so sorry those, especially with, I don't know, unlikely, but with that boy at school, like, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
And like, the physical abuse, it's just...
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to experience it.
That's okay. And I think that's something that I like talking about. Not like talking about, that's really wrong to say, but I think it's an important thing to mention, because when it starts that early, it's hard to comprehend what's happening. Because I'm older now, I'm like, I need to deal with it, and I can't be silent about it. I would never bring it up with him, obviously, but thank you for letting me talk about it.